Have you ever stood at the edge of another morning, wondering why your prayer seemed to echo in silence? Have you asked God for an answer, a breakthrough, a healing, a way out, only to open your eyes today and find the same closed door staring back at you? If your soul feels heavy from carrying burdens no one else can see, if you have smiled through another day while quietly breaking inside, this moment finding you right now is not an accident. Here is something you need to hear before this day takes over your mind. His delays are never his denials. Write that down if you have to, because everything that follows in this message depends on you believing it. The Bible declares in Ecclesiastes 3:11, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." Not your time, not the time you begged for on your knees at 3 in the morning. His time. And his time has never once been late. Look at the sky outside your window right now, or picture it if you cannot. Notice how the sunrise never rushes and never delays. It does not appear 1 minute early to prove something, and it never arrives 1 minute late to apologize. Every single morning, without exception, without failure, light breaks through darkness at the exact second it was appointed to. That is not poetry. That is a pattern God has kept perfectly since the beginning of time, and it is the same pattern governing every promise He has ever spoken over your life. So before fear speaks first today, before anxiety convinces you that nothing is moving, let this truth settle into your spirit. What feels delayed to you was never delayed in heaven. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is worship. Say that to yourself again, because your mind has been trained by a world obsessed with speed to believe that if something takes long, it must be failing. Psalm 27:14 says it plainly. Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. Notice the command is not simply wait, it is wait and be strong. That means waiting has an active ingredient. Something is being built in you while nothing seems to be moving around you. Think about Abraham, promised a son and watching years pass with no child in his arms. Think about Joseph, given a dream of greatness, then thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and forgotten in a prison cell for years before that dream ever touched reality. Think about David, anointed king as a teenager, then hunted like a criminal for over a decade before he ever wore a crown. Think about Lazarus, already dead, already buried, while Jesus deliberately stayed away, because some miracles only make sense after the waiting looks impossible. Every one of these stories carries the same secret. God was never absent during the silence. He was preparing something too large to arrive early. Maybe today that silence sounds like a bank account that refuses to grow, a marriage that feels distant, a diagnosis you are still praying against, a child who has wandered far from everything you taught them. Isaiah 40:31 promises that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength, rising like eagles, running without growing weary. That strength is not given before the waiting, it is given inside it, quietly, while heaven finishes what your eyes cannot yet see. But here is what fear will try to whisper the moment the waiting stretches too long. What if nothing changes? What if this prayer is never answered? What if you have believed for nothing? These thoughts feel loud because fear always speaks louder than faith when your circumstances have not moved. Proverbs 3:5 and 6 gives you the answer before the question even finishes forming. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Notice God never asks you to understand first. He asks you to trust first. Understanding often comes after obedience, not before it. Remember the disciples crossing the Sea of Galilee, the wind rising, the waves climbing higher than the boat itself, panic filling every face except one. Jesus was asleep in that storm, not because He was careless, but because He already knew the ending. When He finally stood and spoke, the wind obeyed instantly. That same authority has not weakened with time. John 14:27 promises peace, but not the world's peace, the kind that depends on good news and quiet circumstances. His peace holds steady even while the storm is still raging around you. Philippians 4, 6, and 7 adds this: Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, through prayer, present your requests, and the peace of God, which surpasses understanding, will guard your heart and your mind. This is the difference almost nobody explains clearly. The world's peace waits for the storm to end. God's peace arrives before the storm ever calms, holding you steady while the wind is still howling around your life. Some of God's greatest work happens in places no one else can see, and that includes the place you are standing in right now. Psalm 147:3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Notice, He does not wait for you to look strong before He draws near. He moves toward you while you are still bleeding, still confused, still asking why. Think about a seed buried under the soil. From the outside, it looks completely dead, buried, forgotten, useless. But underground, roots are already forming in total darkness before a single green leaf ever breaks the surface. That is exactly how God restores a person. He starts underneath, in places no camera, no friend, no headline could ever show, long before the visible change arrives. Romans 8:28 says all things work together for good for those who love Him. Not only the comfortable things, the painful ones too. Look at Joseph again, more closely this time. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold like property, falsely accused, imprisoned for years for a crime he never committed. Every chapter looked like proof that God had abandoned the promise. Yet that exact prison became the training ground for the position that would one day save an entire nation from starvation. Matthew 11:28 says, Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And Peter, walking toward Jesus on the water, proves the pattern. As long as his eyes stayed fixed on Christ, the impossible held him up. The instant fear pulled his focus to the waves, he began to sink. Isaiah 43:2 promises, When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. They shall not overwhelm you. Praise is not reserved for the moments when everything is going well. Praise is a weapon, and the strongest believers in Scripture used it exactly when their circumstances gave them no reason to. Remember Paul and Silas, beaten, chained, locked in the deepest part of a prison for a crime they never committed. At midnight, instead of complaining, they sang. Not after the doors opened, before. And while their voices rose, an earthquake shook that prison to its foundation, and every chain fell off. The miracle did not start the moment praise stopped. The miracle started the moment praise began. Now think about every closed door you have been grieving. Revelation 3:7 says, God holds the key of David. He opens, and no one shuts. He shuts, and no one opens. That means every door closed in your life was closed by the same hand that opens every door meant for you. Some rooms were never yours to enter. Some relationships were never meant to stay. Some opportunities were closed on purpose, protecting you from a future you never even got to see the danger of. Look at Joseph one final time. Every closed door, the pit, the slavery, the false accusation, the forgotten prison cell, was never punishment. It was positioning. The very chapters that looked like abandonment were the exact chapters God used to place him exactly where the whole story needed him to be. So today, before you measure God's faithfulness by what still looks closed, remember this: His delays are never His denials. His silence was never absence. And everything that feels unfinished right now is already moving toward the exact moment heaven has appointed for it to open.